All right, welcome back to the Explainer, folks. Today, we're diving straight into a fascinating analysis of Indian polity, specifically looking at the intricate and sometimes wildly complex federal structure of the nation. But don't worry, we are absolutely not going to get bogged down in dense legal jargon today. Instead, we're going to look at the Indian Constitution for what it really is in this context, a meticulously written family rulebook that governs some very specific sibling dynamics. So, here's our quick roadmap for today. We've broken this dense topic into 5 easy-to-digest parts. Section 1 is Big Brother and Little Brother. Section 2 covers the division of powers. Section 3 is Laws and Special Circumstances. Section 4 is Center on State Laws. And we'll wrap up with Section 5, Administrative Relations. Okay, let's jump right into Part 1, Big Brother and Little Brother. Like I said, viewing the Constitution as a family rulebook is going to be our core metaphor for this entire explainer. Think of the center, or the union government, as the big brother. The big brother naturally has these massive, overarching responsibilities, right? He's looking out for the welfare and protection of the entire family, the whole country. And because he carries that massive burden, the center gets some extra authority. Then you have the little brother, the states. The little brother is incredibly important, highly valued, and has very specific regional responsibilities over his own designated territory. They're totally independent in their own rooms, so to speak, but they still have to operate within the larger family structure. Now, here's where this family dynamic gets a little unique. India has a single integrated judiciary. You see, while the power to actually make laws and execute them is strictly divided between the big brother and the little brothers, the judicial power is not. The brothers share the same parent, basically. There's one unified legal authority, from the lower courts all the way up to the Supreme Court, that enforces both central and state laws. It acts as a single, watchful supervisor, just making sure everyone plays by the rules. Moving on to Part 2, the division of powers. Let's see how these daily chores and responsibilities are actually split up between the siblings. So the Constitution, specifically in the 7th schedule, literally writes down who does what across 3 distinct lists. The Union list has 98 subjects of absolute national importance. We're talking defense, banking, foreign affairs. Only the big brother handles these, no exceptions. Then you've got the state list with 59 subjects, like police, public health, and agriculture. These are the little brother's exclusive chores. Finally, there's the concurrent list with 52 subjects, like education and criminal law. Both brothers can work on these together, but, and this is key, if they ever get into an argument over a concurrent chore, the big brother's word is final. So almost everything is categorized. But wait, what about things that didn't even exist when the rulebook was written? This is where residuary powers come into play. If a completely new topic pops up out of nowhere, like this sudden invention of artificial intelligence or complex internet regulations, who gets to control it? Well, taking a page from the Canadian model, the Constitution automatically hands these leftover unforeseen powers exclusively to the big brother. The center gets to regulate the unknown. Up to this point, we've basically seen the normal, peaceful division of chores. But, we live in the real world. What happens when things go wrong and those normal rules need to bend? Because extraordinary things absolutely do happen. That brings us perfectly to Part 3, Laws and Special Circumstances. This is where we look at the specific exceptions to our family rulebook. There are exactly 5 specific, extraordinary scenarios where Parliament, the center, is constitutionally allowed to step into the little brother's territory and legislate on state matters. Number 1, if the Rajya Sabha passes a resolution declaring it's in the national interest. 2, during a national emergency, when the whole country is under threat. 3, when 2 or more states voluntarily raise their hands and request the center to make a law for them because it's just too complex. 4, to fulfill international agreements. And 5, during president's rule when a state's machinery has completely broken down. I actually want to zoom in on that 4th point for a second, fulfilling global promises, because it's super fascinating. When India, representing the whole family, goes abroad and signs an international treaty, think the Geneva Convention on War Crimes or major anti-hijacking agreements, the entire country has to honor it. To objectively fulfill those agreements, the center is legally required and empowered to step right into state domains and create domestic laws that enforce those global promises everywhere, no exceptions. All right, Part 4, Center on State Laws. Here, we're shifting gears from how the center makes laws to how it keeps a watchful eye over the laws the states make for themselves. To keep order in the House, the system has these built-in constitutional brakes to ensure state laws don't suddenly contradict national interests. First off, a state governor can reserve certain state bills for the president's consideration, which essentially gives the center an absolute veto over a state law. Second, if a state wants to introduce a bill that restricts trade and commerce, they literally need prior presidential sanction before they can even bring it up. And third, during a financial emergency, the center can direct states to just reserve all their money bills. Now, you might be thinking, wow, isn't that kind of unfair to the states? Well, the famous Sarkaria Commission, which studied these exact relations extensively, put it perfectly. They concluded the rule of federal supremacy is indispensable for the successful functioning of the federal system. The big takeaway here is that without the big brother ultimately having the upper hand, you'd have total chaos. Imagine 50 different conflicting laws. It would be a completely dysfunctional system. Federal supremacy is what preserves the harmony. And that leads us to our final section, Part 5, Administrative and Executive Relations. Let's see how all this theory actually plays out in daily practice. We transition here with a highly practical question. Laws are made, sure, but who actually enforces them on the ground? It's one thing to pass a bill in Parliament, but it is an entirely different beast to make sure it's followed across 28 incredibly diverse states. The answer to that question boils down to two absolute, non-negotiable rules for state administrations. Rule number 1, states must fully comply with all laws made by Parliament. They simply don't have a choice. Rule number 2, they must never, ever impede or block the center's executive power within their own state borders. Basically, you follow the center's laws and you stay out of the center's way. To make sure this actually happens, the center has the power to issue direct, binding orders to the states. For example, the center can command a state to protect the railways passing through its territory. It can order a state to maintain vital national communications infrastructure. It can direct states to ensure primary education is provided in the mother tongue of linguistic minorities. And it can even mandate the execution of specific welfare schemes for scheduled tribes. And remember, these are not just friendly suggestions, they are legally binding directions. So, what if a state just flat out refuses to follow these directions? Well, the consequences are massive. Under Article 365, if a state fails to follow the center's directions, it's legally deemed a breakdown of constitutional machinery. And that ties directly into Article 356, which dictates that this very breakdown triggers President's rule. Simply put, ignoring the big brother legally justifies a total constitutional takeover of that state's government. But hey, we shouldn't just end on the strict punishments, right? Because the real world requires pragmatism, and that happens through something called mutual delegation. Despite all these rigid rules, the Constitution actually allows the center and states to voluntarily share their executive duties. The president can entrust federal functions to a state government, and conversely, a state governor can entrust state functions to the center. They delegate powers to each other to prevent administrative friction and just make sure the family runs smoothly day to day. So, as we wrap up this explainer on center-state relations, I want to leave you with something to really chew on. Does this strong big brother system make India perfectly united, or does it risk silencing the little brothers? The Constitution clearly favors federal supremacy to keep the nation intact, but finding that perfect balance, empowering states while maintaining absolute unity, well, that's a debate that continues literally every single day. Keep that in the back of your mind as you continue your deep dive into Indian politics.